Hey YouTubers, Clarrisani here again, and this is my second video, although it's my first real proper longer one, I think. Anyway, I thought before I get into the topics I'd just give you a little information about who I am. I am in my 30s, I'm past the peak as you could say. I am a mother, a wife, a sister, and a daughter, of course. I am white, obviously. I am Australian from the southernmost states. In terms of my education, I have 3 degrees, 1 postgraduate, and they majored in English, literature, media, publishing, editing, and education. And in terms of employment, I have done work as a journalist and as a high school teacher. Another important thing I should probably mention is that I no longer work, and that is because of disability. I was actually had something happen at my place of employment, yes, school, that left me disabled, unfortunately. I am also a long-time gamer, and I'm not just saying I'll play things like Angry Birds and that. No, I've been gaming since I was young. My mother was actually a gamer, and our first console was actually an Atari 2600, although technically it was a 7200 as a 2600 didn't work, we were given. And we've still got that. I've still got a Nintendo, and I mean original blow into the cartridge Nintendo. And what else have we had? I've got an Atari Lynx, if anyone knows what that is, which I always thought was superior to the Nintendo Game Boy, but it was just more expensive to make, more expensive to buy, even though it was superior in every other way. I do have a Game Boy though, and while I don't have the current consoles, I am more a PC gamer now, and basically I like your hardcore. Like I've been playing modded Skyrim right now. I love modding games. I have been published as an author. I don't talk about that story because I had a falling out with the editor of that anthology. And I have been quite active in the online community since 1998 when I was a teenager. So I'm not new to the internet, basically. Now, to get into the topics I want to discuss today, it's a couple of things to do with Australia and couple of things which are wider community. The main issue at the moment here in Australia is the same-sex marriage plebiscite or vote. Now what that is essentially our government has put down over $1 million on a non-legally binding survey that is non-compulsory. Basically a nice big waste of money. And basically they've just sent out surveys to everybody, and you don't have to send it back, and you just got to vote yes or no. And even if 100% of Australians voted yes, that doesn't mean that the government will pass the bill. It's ridiculous. And it's not even needed because there's already been studies and surveys done that indicate that the majority of Australians do support same-sex marriage here in this country. But the problem is our currently conservative government, and even our not so conservative members of parliament, don't properly represent the Australian people. They very much more on the Christian right, if you could say. Even the so-called left-wing party here in Australia isn't left-wing. The ALP, the Australian Labor Party, is not left-wing. Even they are in some issues, but for the most part they're not left-wing. They're deep in the union pockets, and the unions themselves, for the most part, I'm not left with. Some of them are. They're businesses. In terms of how I'm going to vote, I'm definitely voting yes, because my stance has always been, if you don't like gay marriage, don't get gay married. And they're whinging about freedom and all this sort of thing in terms of the marriage. But you have to understand that even without consulting the Australian public, in the 90s, John Howard, our Prime Minister at the time, implemented a change to the Australian Marriage Act, which includes the words, marriage is between a man and a woman. That has to, by law, be read out and said at every single wedding here in Australia. And it is deeply offensive, and we tried to get it taken out of our marriage, out of our wedding, but you can't. So if you want to talk about freedom, that's not free, that was forced upon us. And it's not right, honestly. I mean, the biblical definition of marriage is not between a man and a woman. It's between a man, a woman, his consort, his mistresses, and their slaves. I mean, and even, it's not like the woman had a choice in that. She was just property. She was sold to the man. She is his property. So we've come a long way from there. So if you can't even use the biblical answer, the biblical marriage argument, because one man, one woman is not biblical. And the definition of marriage has changed many, many times. This whole one man, one woman thing is just modern times. It's very recent, probably the last couple of 100 years. Because even the Greeks and the Romans, they had gay and lesbian marriages. They had homosexual marriages, usually done to bring people together, to sort of, you know, like the whole inheritance thing, to legal requirement. They were often done for business, but they existed. And it's always a bit hypocritical here in Australia to hear one of the arguments going around that it will cause more pedophiles, when we have right now a royal inquiry into the Catholic Church and the pedophiles that has in that church, and it's damning. So I don't think the church really has a leg to stand on. And for those outside of Australia, the Catholics are actually were the largest religion in Australia. And the Christians, no. The Catholics, yes. One of the other arguments which was used, or I've seen used, is it will get rid of mum and dad. You won't be allowed to use mum and dad. No evidence of this, and honestly it's taking a shit on single parents, which isn't right at all. And the last argument, which was amazing, was in one of the No campaign ads. They actually had a woman who said that the school said that her boy had to wear a dress. Bullshit. The school has said bullshit. Other parents have said bullshit. She's a known liar. And on that topic, actually, there's the Safe Schools, which is a program that is going to be introduced to teach that transgender and homosexual people are not wrong, basically. They're just people. There's nothing wrong with them. That there's bullying them is wrong. And again, the religious rights come out and said this is against our religious freedom, while ignoring the fact that one of the leading causes of death in teenagers and school-age children is suicide, and so much of it is from bullying, in particular transphobic and homophobic bullying. So this Safe Schools program will save lives. And it's not indoctrination to teach that people are equal, that everyone's the same. If you want indoctrination, you just go to a Catholic school, and there's plenty of them. Then there's another topic, which was there was an anti-vaxxer doctor who was just had his place raided by the Australian Federal Police, I think it was. I'm not sure it was Australian Federal Police, but it was raided by the police. And the reason for this was he was at a conference, an anti-vaccination conference, and boasting about the fact that he had helped families get around hurdles that have been put up by the government. For example, we've got the no jab, no play, which means if your child's not vaccinated, they cannot and does not have a medical reason to not be vaccinated, then they can't attend school or playgroup or kinder. And it also makes it harder for families to get family support benefits. So without a medical reason, you can't. And this doctor was fabricating medical reasons for these people who didn't want to vaccinate their children by choice, so that they can get around it. Now, people are screaming about how it's oppression of this doctor's freedom, he's got a choice, while ignoring the fact that he was actually committing fraud, because he was essentially helping people defraud the government. So, it doesn't matter if you're anti-vaxxer or not, I personally believe in it, and the science is pretty much 100% you should vaccinate, if you can. But he was committing fraud, so it's not a matter of choice, it's a matter of legality. Another thing that's happened recently in the last couple of weeks is that a Peppa Pig episode was banned here in Australia. Why was it banned? Quite simple. It was banned because of content. And before people start screaming about political correctness, there's a reason for it and you'll understand it. The episode which has been taken out of circulation here is the episode called Mr. Skinny Legs, which is essentially about Peppa and George discovering a spider, coming and being scared of it, learn from their parents that spiders aren't scary and becoming a friend of it. Now, anyone who knows anything about Australia knows spiders here aren't nice. We have some of the most poisonous spiders in the world. I mean, in particular the redback and the whitetail. And I wouldn't be surprised right now if there's probably a whitetail behind my couch. It scares the shit out of me to think of that, but it wouldn't surprise me because they are very, very common. And the redbacks, well, there's a thing here in Australia if you use an outside toilet, and they do still exist here. They're not as common, but they exist. The two things you do if you use an outside toilet is check under the seat for the redback and look behind the dunny to see if there's a snake, particularly usually a tiger or a brown. And you do it every time. I've seen both. But the reason, that's pretty much the reason why this episode was taken out of circulation, is because here in Australia, spiders kill. The majority of spiders you come across, you occasionally find, most often you see a common brown spider, your common garden spider, but 9 times out of 10, or even more than that, I always say that, yeah, I don't know, it's just, whitetails are everywhere, and you don't need a kid watching that episode and getting the wrong idea about spiders. And if you had to apply it to anyone, I would say you'd apply it to the daddy long leg spider. That is, though it's highly poisonous, its fangs aren't long enough to kill you. And that's very common as well. That's probably the one spider I'm not afraid of anymore, though they're a bit iffy. They're very good at keeping the rest of the spiders out. Particularly, they're very good at keeping the whitetails out, so we keep them around. But they took that episode out of circulation because of the fact that he's dangerous for children here in Australia. One more, the last thing I've got to comment on, and this video's gone on quite long already, is a reason why I recently had to unsubscribe from someone. Now, this person, I didn't agree with a lot of things that he said, but I didn't follow them for their politics. I mean, they're Trump supporter, that wasn't why I unsubscribed. I followed them because I was interested in their content. They were a company, well, one-man company now, and I'm not going to say who it is. But during one of their videos, they've started turning their channel into putting short clips up and saying, if you want to see the full thing, buy our premium service, buy our subscription service, become a member. And no, it's not Young Turks. You actually get quite a majority of their content. This person, nearly everything they were putting on, and they'd even had a series that they'd been doing, and they got nearly to the very end of it, and they basically finished what they were working on. But if you wanted to see the last few videos, it was locked behind a paywall that would never be made free. And people were complaining about that, rightfully so, because the subscriptions were, I think American currency, they were looking at $70 plus, and honestly you weren't getting much for it. And Australian currency, of course, it's a lot more. You'd be able to be looking at $100 here in Australia. And people complaining, and the response from this person was, well, get off your asses and get a job. People commented, we do have a job, we just can't afford it. And they turned around and said, well, go get another job. Do 2 jobs. You're lazy. And myself and a few others commented on the fact that the reason we don't work is because of our disabilities. One person had mental problems. I've got them too, honestly. I've got severe PTSD and all the things that come with. But this person had chronic depression, which I also have, generalized anxiety, and even though it sounds not bad, it is actually one of the worst forms of anxiety you can have. And they're debilitating, because you don't know one day to the next what's going to happen, and it really makes day-to-day activities hard. And it's compounded for me with the fact that I now have a physical disability, and I can't do a lot of the things I used to love and enjoy because of it. But yeah, this person basically was saying, turned around and said, well, you're just making excuses. Anyone can work. You're just lazy. And he had it in his head that he was doing us a favour by telling us that we're lazy and need to get up and work, and not realising how damaging his words really are. Because when you're in this situation, being told you're lazy and useless makes it worse. And this person, the commenter he was attacking, and myself, well, this commenter understandably didn't sleep that night. I was quite upset, and I consoled with her. I said, no, I'm with you all the way. I understand that I'm in the same boat. But this guy just kept going on the attack. Now, can you have a disability and work? Yes. Physical disabilities in particular are very good at getting around. I mean, the best example of having a major life-changing disability would have to be Rick Allen from Def Leppard. I mean, he lost his arm, and he's the drummer. And not only did he not give up, but he actually created a one-handed drum kit. And he actually now has a company which makes drum kits for people who have lost limbs or were born without limbs. And honestly, it's amazing how he came back from that. But it's harder with mental disabilities, with mental illnesses, you could say. Because as I said, you don't know one day to the next. The treatments themselves can be quite nasty. I've got one medication which basically I don't like taking it, particularly with my young daughter. I don't take it because it would mean I'm not able to function for half the day, even though I took it the night before. So, no, mental illness, disability, and not being able to work because you've been told by your doctors and specialists, no, you cannot work, does not make you lazy. And so I just unsubscribe from this arsehole. I mean, what else can you do? The last thing I want to mention is a video that came out, which I'm thinking of responding to. where a group of the MRA MGTOW up there asked so-called secularists and skeptics came out with a video with questions for SJWs, and some of the questions I've seen a couple of people respond to already, but a couple of questions I can answer directly because I'm a gamer. I'm a female and I'm a gamer. So I'm thinking of doing that response, and I'm curious to hear what you think of that idea of me doing a response to that. I know it's putting these people on the platform, but it's just, I'm not doing it to boost myself up. I'm actually interested in answering their questions, so I'm always happy to debate. I'm also like to hear what your thoughts of all the topics I've discussed, and if you can't remember, it was the who I am, the same-sex marriage issue here in Australia, the non-legally binding survey, basically, banning a Peppa Pig for safety reasons, safe schools. I know Baring did a video on that, getting it completely wrong. You've got the anti-vaxxer, disabilities and not being able to work, not being lazy, and of course, yeah, should I do this video? I'm gonna leave that there. It's a long video, I'm sorry, but yeah, just tell me what you think. What are your ideas? Should I respond to this video? Is there any topics you want to hear? That, I mean, I'm happy to discuss absolutely anything, within reason. I mean, I'm not gonna mention names or anything like that. Any questions? What topic could I speak about in a future video? So, see you later. Look forward to hearing from you.